Let me tell you a story that'll make your interstellar history professors lose their collective minds. The kind of tale that gets filed under absolutely impossible but somehow happened anyway. My name is Jack Reese, and I'm what you might call an accidental diplomat. Not the fancy suit and tie type who knows which fork to use at a 7-course meal on Alpha Centauri. No, I'm the kind of diplomat who accidentally saves entire species while trying to fix a broken communications array. It all started in the Epsilon Quadrant, a region of space so remote that most galactic maps just print "here be dragons" and call it a day. I was working as a maintenance contractor for the Interstellar Exploration Consortium, which is a fancy way of saying I fixed things in space that nobody else wanted to touch. My current assignment? A research outpost on the edge of known space, surrounded by nothing but cosmic radiation and my own sarcastic thoughts. The Krellinae were the dominant predator species in this sector. Imagine a cross between a dire wolf, a velociraptor, and your most aggressive high school gym teacher. Standing about 3 meters tall, covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors based on their emotional state, they were not the kind of species you'd describe as cuddly. Most sapient species gave their territories a wide berth. Humans, being humans, saw an unexplored region and thought, challenge accepted. Our initial contact was less a diplomatic meeting and more a comedy of errors. The Krellinae communication protocols were so complex that most translation matrices would have an existential breakdown just trying to parse their first greeting. But humans? We've got a talent for turning miscommunication into an art form. The research outpost's chief xenolinguist, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, had spent years developing a communication algorithm that could potentially bridge the gap. Most of her colleagues thought she was crazy. I thought she was crazy too, but in that brilliant way that sometimes changes everything. When the first Krellinae scout ship appeared on our long-range scanners, the entire outpost went into high alert. Weapons were charged, emergency protocols activated, the whole 9 yards. But Elena? She was busy adjusting her translation matrix, muttering equations under her breath like some kind of linguistic wizard. Jack, she called out without looking up from her holographic displays, make sure the external communication array is calibrated. We might have one shot at this. I rolled my eyes. Because clearly talking to a species that looks like it could eat a battleship is exactly how I want to spend my Tuesday. Little did I know that Tuesday was about to become the most significant first contact in human exploration history. And it would all start with a miscalculation, a broken cooling system, and an unexpected act of trust that would rewrite everything we thought we knew about interspecies relations. Who says diplomacy can't be interesting? The Krellinae scout ship looked like something a cosmic nightmare would design after a particularly bad acid trip. All angular edges, pulsing bioluminescent panels, and enough weaponry to turn a small moon into cosmic dust. Our outpost's defensive systems hummed to life, a soft electronic purr that felt more like a nervous whimper. Incoming transmission, our communication specialist, Marcus announced. His voice cracked slightly, betraying the tension everyone felt. Elena's fingers danced across her holographic interface. The translation matrix she'd spent years developing was about to get its first real-world test. Most linguistic AI would have surrendered and ordered a stiff drink by now. But this system was different. Adaptive. Almost. Alive. They're not initiating an attack, Elena muttered. They're requesting permission to dock. I snorted. Right. And I'm the Queen of England. But she was right. The massive predatory vessel hung in space, its movement precise and deliberate. No aggressive posturing, no weapon systems charged. Just waiting. The first visual transmission flickered to life, and I'm pretty sure every human in the room forgot how to breathe. The Krellinae captain was massive, scaled skin shifting between deep blues and aggressive crimsons, multiple sets of eyes, some seeming to look in entirely different dimensions, focused with an intensity that could melt steel. But something was off. Behind the typical predatory stance, there was an unexpected vulnerability. Greetings, human vessel, the translation matrix rendered in a voice that sounded like gravel being fed through a synthesizer. We require assistance. Now, in all the first contact scenarios humanity had wargamed, we require assistance was not high on the expected dialogue options. Typically, it was more along the lines of surrender or prepare to be vaporized. Elena leaned closer to the communication panel. State the nature of your required assistance. The captain's scales rippled a communication pattern the Matrix identified as equivalent to a deep sigh. Our youngest are in danger. We seek protection. Marcus looked at me. I looked at Elena. Elena looked like she was trying to solve a quantum physics problem and a cosmic riddle simultaneously. We did a species that could turn our entire outpost into cosmic confetti. Just ask us for help, I whispered. Apparently Elena whispered back, they did. The Krell-NA captain's transmission continued. Their scout vessel had been damaged during a territorial dispute. Their most vulnerable, what humans might call cubs, were aboard. And in their complex social structure, seeking help from another species was tantamount to the ultimate admission of vulnerability. We have heard, reports the captain said, scales now shifting to a pale, almost translucent green, which the Matrix translated as a mix of hope and profound uncertainty, that humans protect young, even of other species. I'll be honest. In that moment, I had no idea we had such a reputation. Sure, humans were known for many things: technological innovation, spectacular failures, making questionable fashion choices across the galaxy, but apparently, we were also known as universal babysitters. Elena's hand was hovering over the communication panel. One wrong move could trigger an interstellar incident. Or, get us all turned into space dust. Jack, she said quietly, what do we do? I looked at the massive predatory vessel. At the captain, whose scales now suggested a mix of terror and hope. At the potential beginning of something humans had dreamed about for centuries. First contact wasn't going to be about grand speeches or technological exchanges. It was going to be about protecting children. Typical humans. Allowing a Krell-NA vessel to dock with our research station was about as comfortable as hosting a pack of hungry wolves at a kindergarten slumber party. Our standard docking protocols were designed for relatively peaceful species, not apex predators who could probably bench press our entire station. The airlock sequence took 27 agonizing minutes. Elena ran continuous scans. Marcus kept his hand suspiciously close to the emergency evacuation controls, and I was mentally composing my obituary. Died attempting to babysit alien predator children. Definitely not how I saw my career ending. When the airlock finally opened, nothing could have prepared us for what emerged. Krell-NA cubs were nothing like their terrifying parents. Imagine if you took the most adorable characteristics of wolf puppies, Komodo dragons, and those big-eyed anime characters, then mixed them into a biological cocktail of pure, weaponized cuteness. They were about the size of large dogs, with scales that changed color faster than a mood ring on a teenager's finger. The captain, who we'd learn was named Vornak, entered behind them. His massive form seemed to shrink slightly, a protective posture that screamed, "These are my tiny terrors, but I'm clearly out of my depth." "We require medical assessment and temporary sanctuary," Vornak announced, his translation matrix rendering his growl into something that sounded almost polite. Elena, being the only one who hadn't turned into a statue, stepped forward. What happened? Vornak's scales cycled through a complex pattern our matrix translated as it's complicated, and also embarrassing. Turns out the Krell-NA were experiencing something unprecedented in their species' history. A genetic anomaly was causing their cubs to be born with significantly weakened immune systems. In their harsh, predatory society, such vulnerability was typically a death sentence. But these parents had decided to challenge that tradition. "We have heard humans possess medical technologies beyond our comprehension," Vornak explained. The cubs, 6 in total, watched us with a combination of curiosity and what could only be described as calculated mischief. One particularly small cub with iridescent green-blue scales suddenly sneezed, and a small electrical discharge shot across the room, shorting out a nearby communication panel. "Well," I muttered, "that's not something you see every day." Marcus looked horrified. "Did that cub just electrocute our equipment?" Vornak's scales shifted to what our matrix interpreted as mild embarrassment. "They are developing." Developing was an understatement. These weren't just predator cubs. They were walking, adorable biological weapons with zero understanding of personal property or electrical safety. Elena was already running medical scans. Her professional demeanor masked a growing fascination. Their genetic structure is extraordinary. They're not just generating electricity, they're creating localized electromagnetic fields. The cubs, meanwhile, had discovered the station's interactive display screens. Within moments, they were causing more system disruptions than a team of overzealous hackers. One was somehow playing what looked like a complex strategy game, another was recalibrating our navigation systems, and a third was just spinning in an office chair with pure, unbridled joy. Vornek looked simultaneously proud and terrified. "Humans," he rumbled, "we have heard you are adaptable." I looked at the chaos unfolding around us. Electrical sparks, spinning chairs, a navigation system that was now showing star charts from a dimension I'm pretty sure didn't exist. "Adaptable," I said. "Sir, we're about to have a very interesting conversation about what childproofing means in interstellar terms." And that's how humanity's first major diplomatic mission with the Krillnae began. Not with grand speeches or technological exchanges, but with 6 superpowered predator cubs, a malfunctioning space station, and a whole lot of improvisation. Just another Tuesday in human exploration. Some days you're the professional space maintenance technician. Other days you're basically running an intergalactic daycare for electrically charged predator babies. Today was definitely the latter. 24 hours after the Krillnae cubs arrived, our research station looked like it had been hit by a combination of a toddler tornado and a lightning storm. Elena had converted the medical bay into a makeshift nursery laboratory. Marcus was developing what he called cub-proof tech barriers. And me? I was learning that childproofing meant something entirely different when your children could spontaneously generate electromagnetic pulses. Vornek watched our efforts with a mixture of fascination and what I can only describe as parental exhaustion. Krillnae didn't typically show emotion the way humans did, but his scale colors were a masterclass in alien dad stress. "Your species is surprisingly patient," he rumbled, watching one of his cubs we'd nicknamed her Sparky casually rewrite our communication protocols while simultaneously spinning on a zero-gravity stabilizer. "Patience," I snorted. "This is survival, buddy. Pure, unadulterated survival." That's when everything went spectacularly wrong. The long-range sensors picked up something that made our blood run cold. A massive energy signature was approaching something big enough to make the Krillnae scout ship look like a toy. Our initial scans revealed a vessel belonging to the Xernax Collective, a species known for 2 things: extreme technological prowess and an even more extreme appetite for genetic research. "They're tracking the cubs," Vornek said, his translator rendering his growl into something that sounded like cold, calculated terror. Elena's medical scans suddenly made horrifying sense. These cubs weren't just a genetic anomaly. They were a potential breakthrough in adaptive evolution. To the Xernax, they weren't children. They were walking, living research subjects. "How long until they reach us?" I asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be good. Marcus's fingers flew across the holographic controls. 47 minutes. Maybe less if they push their drive systems. The cubs, oblivious to the impending doom, continued their adorable chaos. One was now attempting to simultaneously play 3 different complex strategy games, its multiple eyes tracking data streams that would make most supercomputers weep. Vornak's scales cycled through colors that our translation matrix could only describe as a combination of protective rage and strategic panic. "The Xernax will not stop," he said. "They will dissect my young to understand their genetic potential. No negotiation, no mercy." Elena looked up from her medical console. "The cub's genetic structure is unlike anything we've ever seen. They're not just generating electricity, they're creating localized quantum field manipulations. Each one is essentially a living, breathing technological marvel." I knew what was coming next. It was that moment in every impossible scenario where humans look at the odds, laugh, and then do something completely insane. "We're not going to let that happen," I said. Vornak's multiple eyes focused on me. "You are 6 humans. They are a research vessel with technology centuries beyond your capabilities." I grinned. "Yeah, but we're humans. And we're really good at being impossibly annoying when we want to be." The countdown to the Xernax arrival had begun, and somehow, some way we were going to turn this from a potential massacre into a diplomatic incident that would be talked about for generations. Just another day in human space exploration. 47 minutes isn't a lot of time to save a species, prevent an interstellar incident, and keep 6 superpowered predator cubs from accidentally destroying a research station. But humans have done more with less. Elena's medical bay became our war room. Marcus was reprogramming every system we had, while I was trying to keep the Cubs from turning our critical systems into their personal playground. Sparky, I said to the Cub currently rewriting our navigation protocols, how about we not completely reconfigure our star charts? The Cub, who clearly understood way more than she was letting on, gave me a look that was pure, unadulterated sass. Her scales shifted to a color that our translation matrix could only describe as I know exactly what I'm doing, and you can't stop me. Vornak approached, his massive form somehow managing to look both terrifying and worried. Your plan, he asked. I didn't have a plan. What I had was a crazy idea that was equal parts brilliant and absolutely bonkers. We're going to make them think twice about attacking, I said. Elena looked up. How? The Cubs were our secret weapon, not as soldiers, not as weapons, but as something far more powerful. The Zirnaks were researchers, scientists driven by an insatiable curiosity. They saw life as something to be dissected, studied, categorized. What if we could turn that curiosity against them? Marcus, I called. Can you set up a full-spectrum communication broadcast? He raised an eyebrow. You want to talk to them? Not talk, I grinned. Show. As the Zirnaks vessel approached, we prepared our most impossible defense. The Cubs, seemingly sensing something was happening, gathered around our main communication array. Vornak looked confused but didn't interrupt. The first communication ping came. Cold. Mechanical. Demanding immediate surrender of the genetic specimens. That's when the Cubs did something extraordinary. Instead of hiding, they began to. Well, perform might be the wrong word. Demonstrate would be more accurate. Each Cub started showcasing their unique abilities. One generated complex electromagnetic patterns that looked like living art. Another created quantum field manipulations that bent light in impossible ways. The smallest one, who we'd nicknamed Quantum, actually managed to create a holographic representation of a multidimensional chess game that would make theoretical physicists weep. The communication channel went silent. Then, something unprecedented happened. The Zirnaks vessel stopped. Not slowed down. Not approached cautiously. Completely stopped. What just happened? Marcus whispered. Elena was monitoring the communication channels there, requesting a scientific exchange. Vornak's scales cycled through colors of confusion and dawning understanding. You did not fight them, he said. You showed them. I shrugged. Humans don't always solve problems with weapons. Sometimes we solve them with curiosity. The Zirnaks weren't looking to destroy the Cubs. They were looking to understand them. And by showing, not hiding, we had turned a potential conflict into an opportunity for discovery. Sparky, meanwhile, had gone back to spinning in the office chair, seemingly unimpressed with saving an entire species. Just another day in human diplomacy. 6 months later, the universe looked a little different. The Zirnak scientific exchange program became legendary. Those Cubs, our little electrical quantum manipulating troublemakers, were now the most studied and protected young entities in known space. Vornak had become something of a celebrity among predator species, the first to trust humans with their most vulnerable. I was back to my usual job of fixing things in space, but everything felt changed. Our research station had become a diplomatic hub. The Krelnay Cubs visited regularly, now old enough to mostly control their electromagnetic outbursts. Mostly. Marcus had developed an entire product line of Cub-proof technology that was selling faster than oxygen filters in a vacuum. Elena was leading joint research programs that were rewriting everything we thought we knew about genetic adaptation and interspecies communication. And Sparky? She was now essentially the mascot of intergalactic scientific cooperation, with a personal fan club that spanned multiple star systems. During one of their visits, Vornak said something I'll never forget. His translator rendered it with a mix of humor and profound respect. Humans are not warriors. Humans are not diplomats. Humans are storytellers of possibility. I laughed. We're just really good at not dying in impossible situations. The Cubs, now more like energetic teenagers, rolled their multiple eyes in a gesture so human-like it was almost scary. Quantum, the smallest Cub who had started our entire adventure, looked up at me. Will you tell us again how we accidentally changed intergalactic relations? Some stories I realized are better than any weapon. Some solutions are found not through force, but through understanding. Just another day in human space exploration.